Hello and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to be showcasing burning a CD directly from the PS2 Linux kit. This is something that I put together myself through quite a bit of trial and error, but it's just something I kind of wanted to showcase today. The type of disk that we're going to be burning is basically a backup Dreamcast game built from scratch. I'll go through that a little bit. Naturally, to keep the video short and straightforward, I have skipped a bunch of steps, but ultimately I'm going to prove that this does in fact work, even if it's not really a super realistic thing to do for a usable product at the end of it. This requires us to use the Linux 2.4 kernel, which I'm going to boot into in a minute from the PS2 Linux disk. The 2.4 kernel is required for this just because the USB optical drives don't really work under the other kernels. They really just only work the way that we need it to under this one. So I'll go ahead and boot into that, and we will get started in a minute. And just to make everything a little bit easier to follow along with, instead of just typing things directly into the console on the PS2 itself, I'm actually just going to SSH in. This will allow me to type some things out a little more easily, and again, it'll be kind of easier to follow along with. So that's what we're going to do here. So first and foremost, in order to get the USB optical drives to work, we have to actually load the kernel modules into the kernel to support such devices. So I wrote a helper script to do that. I can link it in the video description, as well as some of the other information that's going to be covered in this video. So let me just go ahead and load those modules. Okay, so loaded the modules, and just as a helper, I stated which device node you should create and use for this. Now, technically, in this video, we're not going to need either of these things. But either way, those modules are loaded. So I'll go ahead and power up the USB drive now. So first I'm going to plug it in. To the power. So it's now powered on. And then I'm going to go ahead and actually plug it into the PS2. And we'll see some output in the console itself that the drive was recognized. So there's the output that the drive itself was recognized. So now I'm going to go ahead and begin the process of burning that backup disk. I have to, of course, put a blank disk in there first. That could easily be something I would forget to do. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So I'll put the blank disk in there, and I'll go into my working directory. Within this working directory, these are the game files for Crazy Taxi. This is specifically what I'm going to be using here. But yeah, ultimately these are the files that are going to get burned to the disk eventually. And let me just check on something. There is an extra file in there that I'm just going to go ahead and delete. All right, so first we're going to go ahead and just create a blank audio file, just 4 seconds of silence. In order to get a Dreamcast game working properly, you have to basically create a multi-session CD, and ultimately the first session could be anything. So in this case, 4 seconds of silence is pretty much the minimum that you can possibly burn to a disk. So I created that blank file first and foremost, and then I'm going to go ahead and check on my drive itself. We're going to see that it's detected by CD record, by CDR tools. There's my drive there, and the identifier is going to be 0, 0, 0. So that's what we're going to use from here on out. So first and foremost, we're going to go ahead and burn that blank track to this disk. And we're going to do it in a multi-session. We're going to do it as a multi-session disk so that we can come back later and burn more data onto this. The future data being the actual game files. So first I'm just going to burn this onto there. Oh, sorry, made a mistake. There it goes. All right. And this is just going to burn that audio file directly onto the disk. Okay, so the first session is burned. We're going to now just confirm that the disk is still open for more data to be written to it. And we queried the multi-session info, and it said, yep, the disk is still open, and you can start writing data here at this offset. So now what we're going to do is we're going to essentially package up the game data into an ISO file that we're then going to write to this disk, and we're going to close out the disk when we do that. So we're going to create this ISO file. We're going to preserve the sort order of the files on the original Dreamcast disk. That can help improve load times. Admittedly, in the case of this disk, there's certain optimizations that would be required to create a more playable game disk, and I'm just not going to do any of those here, just because I'm proving my point that this is going to work. I'm not going to dummy the disk, and the other binary modifications that were required to actually get this to boot, I did those outside of this video, and I'm not going to cover how to do those in this video. But in the meantime, we're just going to go ahead and create the ISO file, and we're going to do that right now. And on a modern PC, this would probably take about 10 seconds, but this is a PS2, which is 25 years old and was sort of inferior when it came out back then as well. And so this is going to take a little bit longer than that. All right, so we're really only filling roughly 79 megabytes of this 80-minute CDR, which can hold around 700. I think it's about 702 megabytes total if I were to fill the entire thing. To get a better working copy of a game, it would require me to push all the data out towards the outside of the disk, which is a process called dummying. I'm not going to do that here because then it'll take the disk that much longer to burn, and that way we don't have to just sit here and watch it. The last modification that I made to the game is, in the spirit of burning a copy of a disk directly from PS2 Linux, I thought it would be appropriate to replace all the background music in the game with the PlayStation 2 startup noise. So that was just another little change that I made. So the last thing we have to do before we can burn this data directly to the disk is we have to inject the bootstrap code directly into the ISO file. So if we look at the ISO file that we just created, at the very beginning is where the bootstrap code is supposed to go. So currently this is empty. So I'm going to go ahead and just inject it in. And that can be done with just a regular old command line command using the DD utility. Okay, so we injected that in, and then now we're going to go ahead and burn that second session. And then on the other end of this, we will have a working disk. We'll have a working backup that will boot on the Dreamcast console, as you'll see in a bit. All right, so the disk is burned, and I'll go ahead and just eject it in a theatrical fashion here. Okay, eject it out. Now we're going to go ahead and pop this into the Dreamcast, and we'll see that it actually works. Again, a couple things to note. I didn't build this disk properly in a way that'll prevent long loading times, so this is going to take longer to load than it usually would if I actually kind of did this process properly. So let's go ahead and start it up. Okay, so as you can see, the game actually boots. So again, making our bootable copy actually worked here. And then I will just play the game for very briefly, and then that will be all I have to show for today.
Hey, hey! It's party time. Let's have some... All right, let's go make some crazy money.
Yeah, so normally this would load a lot quicker, but just because of the way I built the disk, there are extended loading times here.
Go ahead and Axel.
All right, let's get it on.
Hey, 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 it's time to make some crazy money. Are you ready? Here we go.
And if you listen, there's the PS2 startup
Right
noise
here.
in the background.
Good job. Take me to the cable car.
Okay,
up on the
hang
hill.
on.
So I think that pretty much proves our point here. Just wanted everybody to, check this out and thought it was just something cool that you could do with this. Even if it's not the most realistic thing, but it's a nice little hobbyist thing that you can do. So that's all I have to show for today. Thanks for watching.